Welcome back to another restoration video. Today we're going to be tackling this Corgi Whizzwheels Bertone Carabo. It's a bit of an ugly looking car as it sits. The colours just don't match at all. I've got another one here that's in much better shape, but we should be remedying that by making it more accurate to the real car today. So as usual, we'll start off by drilling out the posts. I'm using a 1.5mm drill bit to start off with. Two rivets on this car today, so yeah, 1.5mm. Get both posts done with that. You need to go about 4mm deep into the post as well. These posts were really thin, so I did actually slightly blow out on one of them out the side, but not enough to actually make a hole in it. And then we're going in with a 4mm drill to take the head off the rivet. Obviously doing this to both posts, but I didn't show it in the this clip here. So this is the car with the rivets drilled out. Quite tightly held together, so didn't need the assistance of a screwdriver just to lever the body and base apart. Here you can see the suspension that's been included into the model. This will need to be removed, which I'll show later. The interior was surprisingly well detailed for a car of its age. The steering wheel wasn't as much, but some of the controls in on the dashboard were. Glass, annoyingly, is a sort of orange colour. Preferred it to be clear, but I can't really do anything about that. And then the body shell itself. So I can't really remove these wheels without having to cut off the suspension, because if I tried to just lever it out, then these suspension parts would bend anyway beyond the point where they could be used again. So I'm just using Dremel, the cut off wheel, and just taking off those little sort of clasp pieces that are holding it in place. So after it's been ground down a bit, attempt to take it off, but it is still quite tight on there. So it did require a bit more of the grinding off of the parts. The wheels on this are in quite good condition. They only need re-chroming, but they just don't look good at all. I mean, it's probably one of the worst type of wheels ever fitted to one of these size of cars. They prefer the earlier one that was on the other example I had at the beginning. Now going to the screwdriver, and this is able to get it off. Front axle is no longer there. That was because I was able to get that out anyway, but the rear one I couldn't get out because of the hole for the post. So as you can see, that the last suspension bit went flying up in the air. This one didn't as much. And that's it out. So these are the bits of wire, don't need them anymore. So now it's time to strip the paint. And this time I've shown you in real time how long it takes for the paint to come off using this method with the caustic soda. So filling it up with some boiling water, you can see the car parts in there. And then add the caustic soda, let it bubble away for a bit. Quite a reaction this time. This actually works by sort of degrading a thin layer of metal between the paint and the actual body shell. So the car is ever so slightly smaller when it comes out, and therefore that's where the paint comes off in these sheets. So a thin layer of paint will come off more easily because the fluid is able to get in between it. And similarly, quite a damaged car will be able to, and that's the car already stripped of paint. As you can see, there is some sort of bits of melted paint hanging on, but that's literally surface tension just holding that on. It'll wash off really easily with a brush. Base, as you can see, met the same fate. So after a bit of a rinse, we've got the raw metal parts. All came out quite well. So I'll just use the wire brush on the Dremel and just smooth out and clean up the parts, give them a bit of a polish at the same time. This is quite a rewarding process as the sort of dull metal brightens up really well. However, you have to watch out, these little metal brushes leave the sort of metal spines of them all over the place, so can get into your skin and stuff, so you have to watch out for that. So, did the body off camera, but that's what it looks like. Now here's a bit of a mock-up with the wheels. I'm using the monoblock 16 spoke wheels, the same as I did on the Lotus Europa. But these, as usual, don't fit perfectly. They're slightly too big. Well, technically not. They're actually way too small, but because I've raised the axles up, which I'll come to later, they do now rub. So we have to take, that's the bit of the tubing I use. So it's 1/16 brass tubing, which the inside diameter is the exact same as the outside diameter of the Hot Wheel axle, so it's able to work really well. But yeah, I did actually just sit that brass tubing at the top of the V slot that the axle would originally sit in, so it sits a lot higher up. So I'm using the Dremel and the sanding barrel to remove the material from the inside of the body shell. But there was also some material removal required on the interior plastic part as well. There was a part in front of the dashboard that rubbed, wasn't aware of. Unfortunately, the end result doesn't really allow the car to roll very well. Even though I did remove material, it's just with the tolerances of these parts. But I was able to get it to sit together properly and not look strange or not come together and fit very well at all. Moving on to the glass, we're just going to use some 220 grit sponge paper. This stuff's really worn down, so it's probably equivalent of probably about 400 now. This just takes out all the deeper scratches. Annoyingly, there were some cracks in this glass. I didn't notice immediately, but you can't really see them along on the finished model. They're just very hairline ones and aren't visible, so it's not a great problem. Moving after that, this is 800 grit. Again, it's pretty worn down, so it's probably nearer to 1000 or 1200 at this point. Using a bit of water with this as well to smooth it out. And now we're going to move on to polishing. So I washed off all the dust, and then we're using a bit of Meguiar's X 2.0 scratch remover to polish this up. And just a bit of a sort of cotton cleaning pad stuff, and that'll give it a nice shine on it. You do have to work at it for quite a bit just to get it to brighten up again, but it will come back to its original shine. However, some plastics don't react well to this stuff, namely like the Hot Wheel modern glass, but these older, harder plastics used on these Corgi cars do work quite well. Now time for paint. So I've already primed the base and body with Tamiya Fine White Primer. Now moving on to the interior, I didn't bother priming it, I just didn't think it was necessary. I'm just going in here with some Tamiya XF1 Flat Black. I'm basing the colour scheme off the prototype version. There was only one ever made, and it had a black interior. Now moving on to the base, I did go over this in flat black, initially, after the white primer of course, and then whilst I was doing the body, which you'll see later, in gloss black, I did go over this with the gloss black because the matte black is too matte in a way and the gloss black is too gloss, but the rough surface of the matte didn't allow the gloss black to shine up enough, so it gave the sort of satin effect that I wanted. Here's the body shell. So we're going over it in X1 black. This isn't entirely necessary for the final colour, but as I wanted to shine up the base, and it is a good sort of underlay for the silver that was to go on top of this, I thought I'd do it anyway. Only did one coat, maybe two coats of this stuff, as again, it'll just build up the layers of the paint. Second colour onto the black is the silver. This is Vallejo metal colour aluminium. It works quite well. Again, over a smooth surface it's going to shine up best, but black isn't entirely necessary. But it is the best for it to go over. It gives a more deep shine. This silver did get a couple of coats because it takes a bit of time to build up. And this is the final colour. It's Tamiya X26 Clear Green. And this is going to give it its sort of really high shine, deep metallic look. These clear paints are really good to go over metallics because they give that spectra flamey look. And this is what the real car looks like. It is this specific colour. Now if you do look at the real car, it does have an orange strip along the front. I chose not to replicate this as I didn't really like it, but you could do that if you wanted. That'll be getting a couple of coats. And here it is finished. The paint job that is, apart from the rear deck which needs some matte black on it. There was a bit of dust or something that got into the paintwork. Thankfully it was on this rear deck, and as it got painted over I just gave it a quick sand before I applied this coat of matte black. This is Revel number 8 matte black, and it works quite well for this sort of stuff. Thin it down a bit with some water and just brush it on. This will require probably 2 coats. I think that's what I gave it. Thin down. You could go with one thicker coat, but the paint is really thick and will just give quite a horrible result if not thinned. It's quite easy to apply. The panel lines and stuff are well defined on this model, so shouldn't have any trouble if you're attempting this. Moving on to the wheels. These are silver, so the real one had a sort of chrome ring going around it with a black center. So I'm doing the same. I'm just going to paint the insides black. The real wheels were sort of pepper pot steel wheels. However, I didn't really have anything that would like look like that, so I've chose these ones. They do look very similar when painted black, so I think it was the right choice. Again, these are going to need the sort of 2 or 3 coats, like the rear deck. I'm painting the whole thing black quite messily, then dragging my finger over just to expose the silver ring around the edge. This is probably the best way to do it. I've done it before when colour matching the sort of bodywork to the wheels, so you can see it there. I'm going to give it another coat so it'll be more matte black in the centre. Some silver is showing through, but there is a definite difference, as you can see. So putting the wheels on the car, I'm using split Hot Wheel axles, so you cut them in half so you get the two ends. And then I've got the 1/16 tube. I did have to break it off, even though I glued it on earlier. So put the axle in. You can cut slots and dab glue on. I have done that. But I'm trying a new technique today, which is crimping it on. So these are some quite blunt clippers, and I'm just gonna crimp it down. So there's no actual glue. It's just the force of the metal on the axle holding it together, and that rolls quite well. So I did the same for the rear, and it's just a simple case of gluing it in. Oh, this is the rear actually, so yeah. We'll just glue that in and glue in the front one as well, so just some super glue. You want to get very little super glue on these parts, otherwise your wheels are just going to bind up. Didn't really matter in the end for this one, but I do like to have the wheels rotate even if they do rub against the bodywork. So that brings us to the assembly of the final product. So quite simple. I used an M2 tap as usual with some crosshead screws, M2 by 4mm that is. Model fits together really well now that all the wheel wells have been cut out. Quite simply screw it together, and that's it for this model. So I hope you enjoyed the video. There's going to be a bit of a comparison at the end between it and the original model. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.